Good afternoon. This is the continuation of IT deployment risk, still as reported by Ms. April Rose Bungcag. She actually started this in part one with the discussions, and now this will be the continuation. Let's begin.
Post implementation review. So this is a cycle.
Yeah, that is a cycle in which those are the steps involved, similar to SDLC, the systems development life cycle. So let's have like a short look into this one. So from the proposal down to the completion of the project. So we have the investigation, initially the detailed development, and then execution or implementation, and the release of the prototype or startup so that we can see how the project would go, and then the completion of the project. So these are the steps which are very similar to SDLC, and these are, of course, the specific details under. So we have to identify the needs for assets, conceptual design, preliminary design. So all of the designs, the detailed design and development, and then the making under construction and or production, which are under execute or execution, utilize and support of asset. We have, of course, to make use of the asset, and we need to support just in case there would be some challenges in the usage. And up to the time that we will have to stop using the asset. So the retirement part, this is the life cycle now of the asset. And then on the operational reliabilities as we go along the way. So much on these will be tackled in perhaps project management subjects or operations management subjects. All right.
Post implementation. So the key project risk indicator, or this is the red flags. Oh, sorry. Oh my god. So here is it. Management does not use a formal project management methodology.
All right, so these are the red flags as being mentioned by April Rose. So if we say again, risk indicators, so if these would actually be present in a certain company or project, then these would be our warnings. We would say the red flags or the signals for warning that something must be taken into consideration or account, or something is boiling under, not necessarily that would really be resulting to certain problems, but could possibly result to certain problems later on. So this must be diagnosed initially and as much as possible as soon as we can, so that we can make use of any solutions to answer or respond to such. All right. So example is management does not use a formal project management methodology. Remember, in project management, there are steps involved, there are stages involved as being discussed a while ago. So if we do not follow, especially the word formal, so that wouldn't result to good management later on. So certain issues can happen if we do not follow the steps in proper management. And also the methodology, meaning the implementation. Then another one is that project leaders are not adequately experienced at managing projects. That's true. Perhaps the leaders are not equipped aside from the knowledge, but also with the experience. So if some problems or issues can occur, they may not be able to really help for the success or attainment of the objectives and goals of certain projects. Others would have insufficient domain expertise, so this is now on the knowledge. Others are unqualified to handle the size or the complexity. There are certain issues which are peculiar or unique to certain projects. Then this is now the human element. The members are dissatisfied and frustrated. A lot of things could be sources of frustration, could be the handling of the superiors with them or to them, could be their salaries and compensation and benefits, and a lot more. So they can be dissatisfied and frustrated. That's why such could have impact on the fulfillment and attainment of the goals and objectives of certain projects. All right.
And project leaders are not adequate to handle the project.
Okay, so this is now the next part of it. Let's see.
Indicators.
Okay.
In acquiring software applications, to ensure the software acquisitions are being made in the best interest of the company, the client should develop and follow a formal software application acquisition policy.
Right. So not only that we can actually just, for example, acquire already finished softwares. It's possible actually that we just have to create our own. However, there are certain situations that perhaps it is just better to acquire existing softwares because anyway, the features of those are the ones that we really need to our company. But if ever certain features are very unique to us, that's why we need to create our own. So this is on the part of acquisition. Anyway, let's proceed.
The strategic planning. Identify and prioritize the application needs. They determine
Okay, so
application
for a while, this is on mapping upcoming application needs to the plan. So matching the needs, what do we have to respond to the plans of the company strategically. So this is long term. So we have to identify the needs. Do we have to acquire it from external sources or we have to develop it internally or create our own? And we have to formalize the selection process. How do we select from various alternatives or options?
a mapping upcoming application needs to the strategic.
Okay, for a while. Okay, so let's have the second one. All right, so that's the first one.
Application needs to the strategic planning. Identify and prioritize the application needs.
All right, we are done with that. So let's go to the second.
Documentation, security features, soundness of built-in internal.
For a while. So it seems that there's a challenge for us to cover certain parts.
And
Anyhow,
compare alternative solution.
this is the second
So
one.
the use of specific criteria, ease of use, functionality, reporting, documentation, security features, soundness of built-in internal controls, smoothness in integration, future scalability of software, and also
Scalability of software.
performance investigation.
All right, so these are the usage or the use of specific criteria that we have to analyze in selecting from various sources what would be our guidelines. So we have to check the ease of use. So how, for example, convenient it is for the company to make use of the software, the functions, reporting, these particular criteria that we will be guided. Anyway, we don't have to memorize because in real life, for sure, we are going to make our own guidelines so that it will be easier for us to choose among alternatives.
3. Consideration of the cost of the ownership. This So the purchase price of each application include the following factors: the user training, multiple licenses, service and support, future upgrades and software modification.
All right, so these items would of course add to the purchase price of the software application that we have to use because it's not like we have acquired a certain software and that's it. We need to install, we need to train users, for them to be able to know how to make use of the system, how do you use for the service and support, the upgrades, and how do we modify the software.
So here are the key accusation risk indicators. The software accusation are not mapped to the strategy.
Right, so again, these are now the red flags. For April Rose, she will be anyway mentioning them. So allow me to just pick certain parts from here. For example, I will just pick like 5 items. Software acquisition are not mapped to the strategic plan. It's very important that our actions or the implementation processes that we do should be aligned to the plans that we have laid down prior. Otherwise, what we do or the actions that we will be doing would just be waste of time, efforts, and resources because they are not directed towards the organization for the whole and for the future. So we have to make sure that all our actions are geared towards or guided towards the fulfillment of the objectives of the organization so that the resources consumed and used will be maximized and will produce optimal results. All right, so another one is there is no process for comparing the develop versus purchase option. So how do we analyze, how do we determine that we will just develop the software or we will purchase existing ones? What would be the guidelines? In fact, a while ago, we have the uses criteria, right? So like those are the things that we have to consider as to whether we should, for example, develop or purchase. Then another one is no one is assigned responsibility for the acquisition process. So who is in charge? Who has the authority? Who has the approval and so on before we actually purchase the said software? This is one red flag also, a warning, a signal that we would say. Then, for example, affected parties are not involved with assessing requirements and needs. Supposedly, those who will be using the softwares should be the very first persons who should also be involved in the judgment because anyway, the software that will be utilized are the ones that actually are purchased prior. So what I mean is that the software that they will be using, the they would be the parties or the users, and the operation would be the very same software purchased prior. So what's the point of acquiring the software if again it does not answer or respond to the needs of these users? Again, software acquisition should be mapped to the strategic plan. This one with the not is a red flag. Another one is there is insufficient knowledge of software alternatives. What if one software does not work? What would be other options that we have to consider? Although before we actually implement and allow the usage of a certain software, it must undergo a lot of testing. So a series of tests, including stress testing, meaning if all users will be using them, can the software accommodate? So those tests will be done, which will be mentioned in later chapters. Anyhow, the point is that do we have the sufficient knowledge just in case that we cannot make use of the existing software? So these are the things that we have to take note or about the certain acquisition indicators. All right, so next to that would be, of course, the developing of software applications. So here is again April Rose to do such.
Application. Develop a software application. They determine the extent to which proposed systems developed projects are aligned with the strategic plan.
Okay, so see what I meant there when we said that all actions that we do in the company should be geared and aligned towards the attainment and the achievement and fulfillment of the plans. Otherwise, we are just wasting the company's resources then.
Steering community
Committee, that's steering committee.
are typically permanent in nature is that the members serve in this capacity over multiple years and guide or steer numerous projects.
All right, so if we use the word steer, that basically means that we are actually guiding, we are actually moving towards the fulfillment of the objectives. I kept on saying that because, again, anything that we do here should be for the attainment of the goals and objectives of the company or corporation as a whole. So the steering committee here would be the committee, the team that would guide us or steer us or direct us towards these goals.
Objectives. So here are the objectives. Evaluate submitted proposals, determine which potential projects merit further investigation, prioritize projects in order further importance, evaluate feasibility studies, and oversee the project's progress as it unfolds.
Right. So if you can notice with the flow, this is like, again, the planning aspect is that before we implement, it should start with planning. The proposals, the feasibility studies should be there. We have to evaluate. We here, because we are assuming that we are part of the steering committee. And then we are going to determine out of those proposals submitted, which would be potentially providing benefits to the organization in such a way that the benefits must outweigh the costs. And we have to investigate further. Then after that, we now prioritize the projects in order of their importance. So which of those evaluated, submitted proposals with the merits and benefits actually should be prioritized considering that we have limited resources in the business. Then you also have to evaluate the studies, and in the implementation, the steering committee should, or we or us should be seeing to it that the progress is beneficial to the company as it unfolds.
In conducting feasibility study, they have the technical feasibility. It focuses on assessing whether current, affordable, and reliable technology can be reasonably applied to the project.